Should I begin at 7 or should I just start it now?
You should wait. You should go at 7.
Sounds good. We'll begin shortly. All right, it is 7 o'clock, so let's begin. Good evening and welcome to the 2020 Primetime Candidate Forum for the Pueblo West Metropolitan District Board of Directors, or as some may mention it as the forum where only the top half of ourselves is dressed appropriately. My name is Madison Cunningham and I am a senior graduating from Pueblo West High School. Joined with me is the Justice League, a group of Pueblo West High School students that have diligently worked to assemble this forum. We will serve as this forum's moderators. Within the Justice League, there is sophomore Haley Regueth, sophomore Katrina Jakeman, sophomore Jaden Inks, sophomore Araya Salas, junior Bailey Blosser, senior Keenan Carmenzana, and senior Jaslyn Marsh. In the past years, it has been Pueblo West High School that has provided candidates the opportunity to present their platforms directly to the voters. This year, we break away from the traditional in-person forum due to COVID-19 to a virtual forum that will keep providing the information you may need to fill out your ballot. This year, the ballots must be mailed in by Tuesday, May 5th. We will be streaming this forum on YouTube Live and on the Pueblo West Metropolitan District's website. But in case you could not join us tonight, a recording of the forum will be posted on Pueblo West Metro District's website and their social media. I, as well as the rest of the moderators, challenge the residents of Pueblo West to not only share the link to watch this forum on your own social media pages in order to attract a larger audience, but most importantly, make this election record-breaking quantitatively and even qualitatively by building and bettering the community. We would like to give a special thanks to Michelle Erickson, Pueblo West Metropolitan District, Pueblo West Chamber of Commerce, the Pueblo Chieftain, Fox 21, KKTV 11, and the candidates for collaborating closely with the Justice League. Candidate forums should be seen as unbiased as they are controlled by the students, not the candidates. Forums are not a medium to debate and compare platforms, but rather a channel to educate the community about this year's candidates. We ask the candidates to be respectful and mute themselves when they are not speaking. Here are the ground rules that were given to the candidates before tonight. Each candidate will give a 1-minute opening statement. For each question, each candidate will have 1 minute to respond, with the exception of the last question, where each candidate will provide a 1-minute answer, followed by a 1-minute closing statement. Araya Salas will be our timekeeper. Araya, can you please wave so the audience knows who you are? She will provide a green sign for when you may begin your minute, or 2 minutes depending on the question, a yellow sign for when you have 15 seconds remaining, and finally, a red sign with a verbal stop for when time is up. And when you should close your final remarks. Otherwise, we will mute you to remain within time. Time limits will be followed closely to ensure fairness to each candidate. Tonight, we expect the forum to last an hour and a half. We have randomized the order of the candidates for each question to maintain the impartiality of the forum. We expect the audience to give each speaker the chance to be heard. The questions that we have planned for tonight are student and community-based. So the questions will cover areas of interest such as taxes, economic development, recreation, and emergency services and infrastructure. I would like to thank you again for joining us in the comfort of your own home and remind you to practice healthy habits. Now, I will have Jaslyn Marsh speak to begin the forum with opening statements.
All right, so we will begin tonight's forum with a 1-minute introduction from each candidate.
Candidate 1, Mr. Josh Allison, your minute begins now.
First, let me say thank you to everyone for taking the time to watch this forum and make yourself an informed voter. I'm Josh Allison. I'm proudly born and raised here. I left for college where I studied business management and communications. I then moved back to Pueblo West to raise my family here. I've been an entrepreneur my entire life and have successfully developed and sold several businesses. But most of all, I'm a family man. My greatest accomplishment and what I am most proud of is my family. I've been married for 10 years and I have 2 beautiful daughters. I currently own and operate Pueblo West Storage and have become a specialist in growing businesses and finding ways to generate more revenue in pre-existing businesses without spending more money. This knowledge will help me manage and grow Pueblo West responsibly. I'm in my early 30s and I believe that gives me a unique advantage because I'm young enough to understand the concerns of our younger population, mature enough to relate to our adult population, and experienced enough to know how to get things done. I have served on the Pueblo West Chamber of Commerce Board, and I am a big supporter of the Pueblo West community. My goal is to use my knowledge, experience, and expertise to help better this place we all call home.
Can you please finish your sentence?
I'm done.
All right, thank you, Josh Allison. Andy Blumberg, can you now begin your opening statement? Mr. Andy Blumberg, you have 1 minute to begin your opening statement. Can you unmute yourself?
Yes.
There you go.
Thank you, Aaron, for the opportunity to be here tonight. I'm super excited to be running for the Pueblo West Board of Directors position. I just want to tell you why I'm the best candidate for the position. I believe that my 12 years in this community serving in the Pueblo West Rotary, my time in the Army have allowed me to live my life to my favorite motto, service above self. I wake up each day knowing that I give my all serving the community. We should always be asking our elected official, how are they improving our communities? I will improve our community through driving economic development, growing our Parks and Rec department, and increasing the communication and transparency between our government and our community. As a father of a 14-year-old, not only am I proud to live and work in this community, but I'm excited to provide a future for my daughter and everyone else's children to be proud of as well.
Thank you, Mr. Blumberg. We will now hear from candidate number 3, Nicholas DeSalvo. Your minute begins now.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Nicholas DeSalvo, the 17-year-old student and grocery worker running for the board of directors, simply because I love Pueblo West and I care about the future of our community. Now, allow me to address the elephant in the virtual chat room. I'm young, and some individuals and some candidates alike that I will not mention by name have insinuated that I might not be mature enough to talk about these issues, but to that, I say this. Look in front of you and see who's asking you the tough questions. It's the students. Also, tonight we're going to talk a lot about the future of Pueblo West. And ladies and gentlemen, this is what the future looks like. In fact, in 2018, when Andy Blumberg ran, he ran on the slogan, "Our youth are our future, so let's invest." And quite frankly, I agree. You can invest in the youth of Pueblo West and the future of our community by casting your vote for Nicholas DeSalvo. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeSalvo. Candidate Rick Dickerson, your minute begins now.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thanks for all the students and everybody who is out there that are interested in this opportunity. A little bit about myself. I came here about 4 years ago to Pueblo West. I invested in Pueblo West. I bought a home. I got a business, Rad Custom Home Design. I have had my hand in builds of over 300 houses here in Pueblo West. I have joined all different kinds of organizations and different committees. I'm on the architect committee right now. I was on the economic development committee. And I just really want to say that I am so interested in our community that I want to make it grow and be such a great place here. Thank you.
Thank you. Can candidate Joe Easton start their introduction, please? Your minute starts now. Joe Easton, can you unmute yourself, please?
I think I did. Is it unmuted? All righty.
There we go. Okay, your minute starts now.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to spend a little time with you. My name is Joe Easton, and I'm a married father of 4 with 3 grandchildren. I retired from the college as a faculty member and department chair for accounting and business. I have a degree in finance and marketing from the University of Denver. Lived in Pueblo West about 17 years, never been a candidate for anything. Just believe I have some talent and some expertise to share and some energy. I believe it's important, as Nick said, that our future is our youth. I have children here. I've raised them here, and I would like them to follow their dreams, Hollywood, Wall Street, but I would like them to have the option of raising a family and having a career in Pueblo West. I'm embedded in the community. I love it and ready to serve. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Easton. Ms. Hayek, your minute begins now. Ms. Hayek, I believe you're muted.
Oh,
Your minute begins now.
can you hear me yet?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you can? Okay. I'm Sherry Manley Hayek. I moved to Pueblo West 20 years ago when I built a home for me and my twins. Like I said, I am not educated in college and have no degrees, but I have a lot of education just in life. And I was lucky to be with the Swallows Academy and went in, and I really believe in that school, and I hope they do great things and we could bring some stuff there. I work at Lowe's, and so I wear masks every day and try to do the best that I can for people, because I really love people and I like to hear, and I like from 17 years old to the oldest one of us, that's what I care about, is listen to all of them, you know, and we have to work together and do more teamwork. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Hayek. Now, James Maggard, your minutes begins now.
Attended most of the board meetings over the last 14 years, giving me a background with the operation and needs of Pueblo West. I have a degree from CSU, Fort Collins. I have various occupational experiences, including owning a business. These experiences and knowledge can help bring fiscal balanced budgeting to Pueblo West. Locally, I continue to attend other meetings involving Pueblo West growth. One would be the tour for new park selections. And I would like to at this time thank the government class and Ms. Erickson for their work and time to produce this event. I'm finished.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Beckert. Mr. Mahaney, it's your turn. Your minute begins now.
Hello, this is Joe Mahaney. First, I want to thank the Justice League for putting this thing together. It's far more complicated than I thought it ever would be, but it seems to be working out real well. By way of introduction, I'm a retired civil engineer. I've spent most of my career at CF&I in the land and water departments. I was integrally involved with all the water rights in the Arkansas Valley, including watching over the last 50 years Pueblo West acquire water, develop a water system, develop a treatment system, develop a wastewater system. I was a certified water and wastewater operator. I have some qualifications that I think would help the district far more than anybody else. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mahaney. Tony Montoya, your minute begins now.
Thank you very much. I want to thank Ms. Erickson and the students for putting this on. I really appreciate it. I've made it a point to be involved in, in my professional career, part of following the community. As a result, I've served on the District 70 School Board for 4 or 5 years. The VP and president. I was also a member of the Pueblo Area Council of Governments and chaired that for a year. And worked with you through the Wildlife Program and involved with both chambers of commerce. I believe that my involvement and my experience with budgets, personnel, grant management, and organizational management have prepared me for the responsibilities of being on the board. Additionally, the 15 years of living here in Pueblo West, I think I've got a good idea of what kinds of.
Stop. Can you please finish your sentence?
All right, if we could have candidate number 10, Herbert D. Myers.
I don't believe he's here.
Okay, then moving on, we will move on to Miss Baker Orr. So your minute begins now.
Hi, Jamie Baker Orr. Just wanted to bring some, I guess, growth and development to Pueblo West. Obviously, I love our community. My business is based out of Pueblo West. I've lived here for about 24 years since I was old enough to have a couple kids and raise them here. I love the community. I think I have a background in construction and development, which will play an essential part to growth to the community and making sure that it's controlled growth, and of course working in collaboration with other people and making sure that it's gonna, I guess, go correctly. So I look forward to working with all of you. I'm open to conversation. So I think you have a great amount of people that are very well qualified. So good luck, everybody.
All right, if we could have, oh, thank you, Baker Orr. Now, if we could have Kim Swearingen speak.
Good evening, Pueblo West. My name is Kim Swearingen. Firstly, thank you to Ms. Erickson and the Justice League for putting on this virtual public forum. I hope you are all staying safe in this trying time. It is my pleasure to tell you about myself and how I can help the district. I have lived in the Pueblo area for over 28 years, specifically in Pueblo West for a total of 7 years. When I lived here originally, we had 3,000 people, and now we have an amazing 34,000 plus people. My experience in local government for the past 13 years makes me uniquely qualified to fill this role as a director for the Pueblo West Metro District. As a former employee, I know how the district functions, understand its budget, what its challenges are, and how best to address those challenges. I also have the heart of a servant. I want to serve the residents of Pueblo West. What better way to do that than to become a part of the group that can affect great change?
All right. Thank you, candidates, for your opening statements. We will now begin with our first question. So in front of you, you can pull up your agenda to look at this first question, but let me just read it off. How would you respond to the ballot measures that propose to increase taxes? In what ways can Pueblo West benefit off of a potential 1-cent tax increase? For example, ballot measure 6A proposed fire stations, new public facilities, and staffing for those facilities. Can I have Josh Allison begin? You have 1 minute.
I'd like to begin by saying nobody, and I mean nobody, hates taxes and raising taxes more than I do. However, that being said, Pueblo West would obviously benefit from having another fire station to help cover the unprotected areas in our community. And having some new public facilities like an event center and aquatic center would be a huge asset for Pueblo West in many, many ways. I think about the sales tax this way. What is it actually going to cost me? An extra 50 cents every time I spend $100 at Walmart? So I then ask myself this question: what is a human life worth to me? To hear stories our first responders couldn't help save someone's house from burning down or help someone in a medical emergency simply because we don't have a location close enough to them does not sit well with me. It makes the decision to give a little extra a lot easier. On the flip side to that, I have plans and ideas that will bring money into our metro district without having to increase our taxes.
Thank you, Mr. Allison. We will now hear from Mr. Blumberg. Your minute begins now.
Yeah, if you want to have nice things, you have to pay for it. Based off of what our community needs are, I would support a tax increase. I mean, no one likes it, but I would support it, especially just a 1-cent tax increase. This would benefit our fire department, our firefighters, and staying safe, as well as keeping the community safer. This could also help in developing roads and infrastructure, as long as the designated funds go toward building the roads and infrastructure in areas where we would want to be recruiting businesses. By focusing on these areas and main corridors, we will generate income for our community through property taxes, which will then be invested in fixing other issues around Pueblo West.
Thank you, Mr. Blumberg. Can we now have Nicholas DeSalvo please answer? Your minute begins now.
Well, when I started this campaign in mid-February, the public has made it very clear to me that they don't like taxes, and quite frankly, I'm 100% with them. But on the other hand, the Metro District came out with a statement saying that they're moving to a point where they're becoming unsustainable, meaning that we're spending more money than we're bringing in, and that's a problem. And it's going to be a problem in the very near future if we don't deal with it directly. So when it comes to a 1-cent tax increase on a ballot measure, I would be very clear with the public on what services we would provide with that 1-cent tax increase. For example, I've watched the candidate forums from 2016 and from 2018, and all the candidates promised that they would focus on the roads. We could get something done and move on to the more important pressing issues if we fix the roads. Thank you.
Thank you. Can Rick A. Dickerson answer question 1, please?
Yes,
Your
thank
minute
you.
starts now.
Thank you. I know the board members are not allowed to have that are not allowed to actually endorse any taxes, but as my opinion, I think the most important issues out there are stuff that we really need to look at. And right now, I can't say, as far as my opinion, I'm not the one to give my opinion. I would have to really do my due diligence and look at what is out there and what is most important for our community, and not use my opinion. You know, it's more about our community, what I believe. Thank you.
Ask our candidates to please mute their devices. Herbert Myers, since you just joined, we would like to keep it fair. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Would you like to give your opening statement right here You'll have 1 minute to give your opening statement. And
My opening statement probably won't agree with everyone on here, but I am against raising taxes for any reason. Everything that we're talking about, I fully realize occurred before the COVID-19 epidemic, but the financial situation of the entire world is not in a good place to be borrowing money for operations of the Metro District. And I'll let it go at that. Thank you.
thank you. Now, can we follow on after Rick A. Dickerson?
Mr. Easton, you have a chance to respond to question 1. Your minute begins now.
You are muted, Mr. Easton. So sorry, you're allowed to start over.
There we go. I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, taxes, it's very easy to say that taxes are bad and they shouldn't be raised. The reality of it is our sales tax is particularly low compared to communities of similar size. And as Pueblo West turns 50 with an aging infrastructure, we were fast approaching unsustainability. I think as far as the ballot measures failing, we probably could try to do a better job of expressing the value proposition of why we were raising taxes and what we might do with them and how that would improve the lives of Pueblo West, tax base of people that live in Pueblo West, and build a better future. It's unpleasant, but it's a part of the direction you have to take as you grow.
Thank you. Can we have Sherry Hayak answer to question 1, please? Your minute starts now.
I'm not sure on the raise the taxes, not raise the taxes. I do believe that everything's been the same for so long that we are growing and that, we need help with our people and we have to pitch in. So if they don't want to pitch in one way or another, we have to make them do it, I guess, by raising taxes, and we'll make our roads better. That's when he said, if we got the roads right, we could do so many more things, let alone what it does the wear and tear on our vehicles and our kids' vehicles, So I think we need to do that. And I think that someone else said that bring businesses in here and they pay the taxes and then we have more money to spend like that. So I'm not an expert on all that, but I know that we all have to pitch in and we have to do it soon. Thanks.
Hayek, I will now reread the question for the second half of our candidates. How would you, as a candidate, respond to the ballot measures that propose to increase taxes? In what ways can Pueblo West benefit off a potential 1 cent tax increase? For example, last year's ballot initiative 6A, asking for fire stations, new public facilities. Mr. James Jim Maggard, you will now have the opportunity.
Mr. Maggard, you are muted, but don't worry, you can always restart your answer.
What'd she say?
Go ahead and unmute yourself.
We should be there now.
Yes, okay, now your minute begins.
All right. Probably the most disgusting word we ever hear is taxes. Yet everyone wants this money to spend. At some point, we have to draw a line about where the citizens can afford to pay taxes. Now, if the board would not exceed the spending beyond the revenues and watch the priorities, we could have a well-balanced budget and still live with the existence of our service plan. That's the basis of Pueblo West existence, is the service plan, which includes the roads, the fire, and water and wastewater. Right now, the demand and the budget has been brutally
Can you
abused.
please finish your sentence, please?
The the budgeting has been overstated, and the amount spent on expenditures has only been 50% of what is budgeted. And usually the income revenue side has increased by in the neighborhood of 6% over the last several years.
Thank you, Mr. Maggard. Joe Mahaney, your minute begins now.
I'd like to remind people that we pay taxes in several different forms in Pueblo West. We pay state tax on property. We pay county tax on property. We have a 20 mil, give or take, Pueblo West property tax that, according to the service plan, pays for the fire department and some of the municipal services, the water and wastewater. It does not include the roads. The roads still belong to the county, and we pay taxes to the county. We have made an agreement with the county to take over maintenance of the roads, but the roads still belong to the county. The sales tax would only generate enough money to barely touch the roads. It won't cover anything else because it doesn't cover groceries. It only covers non-grocery items and liquor. And
Bob, can you please finish your sentence, please?
that's good. I'm done.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mahaney. Mr. Montoya, it's your turn. Your minute begins now. Mr. Montoya, you're muted.
Yeah, I'm hitting
Mr. Montoya, can you hear us?
Yep. Now I got it.
Okay, your minute begins now.
The Pueblo West Metro District has been successful in passing, hasn't been successful in passing these initiatives. The 1 cent tax increase would certainly make a difference. However, we've got to convince the community that we can do those kinds of things. And if they want these changes, they're going to have to support those tax increases. There's been a question also that there's been some mismanagement, or at least they're not tracking the general fund properly. I don't necessarily believe that. I just think that we have a limited amount of money, and they're trying to stretch it as far as they possibly can. It's important to understand that as long as we remain the same size as we are, we're not bringing any businesses. It's gonna be real tough to do anything but stay the way we are. So I think it's
can you please finish your sentence, please?
Identifying some additional funding sources and look at maybe raising the taxes or getting that 1 cent sale.
Okay, next we will move on to Mr. Myers. Your minute begins now.
This is still the first question or the second question?
This is still the first question.
I answered when I came on. I'm
Okay.
against taxes of any kind. I'm against fees. I will always act to reduce taxes. I will always act to reduce fees of any kind. Needs, wants, and desires. I know there's a lot of desires in the community, but we do not have the money. We're not going to have the money in the future. And quite frankly, I don't know where they think they're going to borrow the money in the future. The banks are collapsing. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Myers. If we can now hear from Jamie Baker Orr.
So on taxes, of course, nobody likes to pay them, but the reality of it is that if you want some of the services that come with a growing community, Unfortunately, taxes are just part of the deal. So the 3.9% sales tax, 2% goes to the state, or the 2.9 goes to the state, 1% goes to the county fund. So I think the people in Pueblo West need to realize that that's a general fund. So the money that you're paying in is not coming directly back to your community. And I think if you look at communities with the same type of population that we have, that their budgets are much higher than ours. The 9 million budget is basically running on shoestrings. So at some point it's going to have to be addressed, and it's a very minimal tax on sales tax items.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Baker. Or next, for our final candidate for this question, we will move on to Ms. Swearingen.
Thank you, Katharina. Pueblo West residents are very frugal people. They want to know that their money is being spent wisely. One of the chief complaints I heard while the ballot measures were being decided was that the voters were unclear where the money was being spent. This is a very valid point. It would be my job to make sure that the budget is transparent and money taken in and spent is clear so that everyone can understand. Pueblo West residents also would like to see their community grow and improve, but that takes money. I think that through a program of savings measures, this could be achievable, but money saving measures only go so far. Should the community want improvements such as an aquatic center or a fire station, which we already know they do, something needs to be done to account for any shortfalls. Whether it's partnerships or working with other groups, such as the county on roads, to achieve those goals, it will be something we have to do. I, as a future part of the board, look forward to those potential partnerships.
Thank you. We will now be moving on to our second question. How can we meet the demands of our growing population concerning emergency services, infrastructure, and the need for precautionary measures to keep community members and essential employees safe and better prepared during times of uncertainty, such as COVID-19? We will start by hearing from Jim Maggard. Your minute begins now.
Is that Pueblo West is a partner of the Pueblo County Emergency Management Program. The fire department is in charge locally, and I do believe Pueblo West also has a local plan for our community for emergency situations. I know they've had several exhibits out. The need for this information, though, should be available to the public somewhere, and I do not see it available. Regarding the road problem, this is going to be between the state and the county commissioners, but once it gets started, I'm sure we'll have a lot of issues, and the board is going to have to work with state engineers to resolve those.
Stop. Please finish your sentence, please.
Finish your sentence. Oh, as far as the current thing with the medical, the county health department should be responsible for those items as a countywide operation. So that's where we need to find out if they do have plans.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Maggard. Mr. Mahaney, it is your turn. Your minute begins now.
First, the access to Pueblo West has been discussed and argued over between the City of Pueblo, Pueblo County, and Pueblo West Board of Directors. County and Pueblo, City of Pueblo, feel that the best way is to extend Joe Martinez east to intersect with Pueblo Boulevard. The board, Pueblo West Board at that time, wanted to extend Spalding because it would go through more of Pueblo West property and provide more locations for commercial development. By arguing and not coming together, they ended up getting nothing. We need to finally decide what our plan is, and the plan is to extend Joe Martinez on east. And as far as the coronavirus or any other virus, let's remind we're a low density community. It's easy for us to stay distant from each other because we're spread out. Don't make people put us together. We don't want to expand into a high density city.
Stop. Can you please finish your sentence, please?
I finished. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now be moving on to Tony Montoya. Your minute begins now.
Oh, am I having trouble with this crazy thing? Can you hear me at this point? With respect to the COVID-19 crisis, we all have to make an effort to listen to some of these medical experts and the front lines people, and make sure that we join together to look after one another and look at taking care of our local business. Here in Pueblo West, we need to develop an emergency plan so that we can address some of these issues when they come up. There are a lot of things that could happen that we're not aware of, just like this one. We also need to start looking at some partnerships with regard to health organizations, ambulance services, law enforcement, and that sort of thing. And with respect to the population growth, I know a lot of people move here because they like this country living, sort of. It's a quasi-country living. But we have to look at the infrastructure, the shortfalls that we have in terms of being able to attract business opportunities and families to come to the community. We do have a school district that I'm very proud of having to work with that is doing excellent. Our students are doing great, the staff is doing great, but that's not everything that's going to bring families into this community.
Sentence.
It's important that we identify additional funds outside of the general fund and look at projects that we can look at in the future.
All right, thank you, Mr. Montoya. If we can now hear from Herbert D. Myers, your minute starts now.
I'm going to sound like a
You did mute yourself, Mr. Myers. Go ahead and begin to start over.
not to be sounding like a broken record, but this is off the Pueblo West Metro website. Our revenues are 8.1 million and we're spending 9.5. That's called deficit spending. That's what the federal government, the state government, that's what everyone does. In English, that's called spending money you do not have. We do not have any money. I don't know how many times they've put increase of taxes on the ballot. They're voted down every time. The problem with that is there's 30-some thousand people here, and I think our average return on a ballot is like 3,000 folks vote. So we don't have money to build a firehouse, to extend anything out to Pueblo Boulevard. We don't have the money. I don't know where we're going to borrow the money. Like I said, broken record. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Myers. Next, we will move on to Ms. Baker Orr. Your minute begins now.
So of course, safety is important to everybody who lives in the community. That's again, another topic that comes with taxes. Nobody likes them, but again, if you're working in a deficit, as Mr. Myers said, then there has to be some way to make additional funds. If that's bringing big business in so that they're paying their commercial property taxes to the Metro District, somehow creating growth in the area that is going to give us a bigger tax base to be allocated to those safety items. So it's a really tough situation that the Metro District, our population continues to grow, but we're not keeping any more funds here. It's going to the general fund. So somehow we have to get more money allocated to Pueblo West.
All right, thank you, Ms. Baker Orr. If we could now hear from Kim Swearingen, your minute starts now.
Thank you, Jaslyn. Pueblo West only has one emergency service in the fire department. We rely on Pueblo County for our police services. The fire department is not the only one potentially affected when a crisis comes to Pueblo West. The fire department relies on the water department for water to put out the fire and the public works department for passable roads. It is all interconnected. The fast growing population puts a strain on all of that infrastructure, and that is just one small scenario. Growing populations put a strain on the availability of water, parks, trails, schools, and road systems, just to name a few. For the services offered, the district commissioned a study to determine if the future of Pueblo West is sustainable using the current metropolitan district model. Many things were studied, including incorporating. Is this right for Pueblo West? That has yet to be determined and would have to be voted on by the residents. What must be determined is how we continue to function by doing what we promised to do in our service plan, which includes public works, parks, water and wastewater services, fire protection, and the administration of those services.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Swearingen. So I'm going to repeat the question for the second half of the candidates. How can we meet the demands of our growing population concerning emergency services, infrastructure, and the need for precautionary measures to keep community members and essential employees safe and prepared during these times of uncertainty, such as COVID-19? For example, there has been concern about the Purcell intersection bridge, as well as road maintenance and the limited accessibility to Pueblo West. We will now be hearing from Ms. Hayek.
I think that we do need to open up some more places so that people can get in to Pueblo West, because I think they get burned out and just go driving on by. So we need more access spots, but we do need more road signs, I think, too, on our existing people down industrial that have been out here. That's majority where the businesses all are. So there's a road sign that says what businesses are down there. So, you know, they would know. And I had talked about that years ago with another manager. Nothing that I said seemed to matter. Just like the roundabout that came on Platteville and Purcell, I had seen 3 wrecks there. Went to Pueblo West Metro, asked them, I wanted that they got to do something. And I said, you're going to wait till somebody dies. And sure enough, there's a lot of people that died. So we have to do something now for a lot of problems in his teamwork. Thank you.
Can we have Joe Easton answer question 2, please? Your minute
Yeah.
starts now.
Yeah, thank you. As far as the emergency services, I spoke to the emergency services coordinator for the entire county, and the access issue is somewhat complicated, but not all that dire for a community of 34,000 people with the access to 50 west and east from the north side of 50 to the interstate. There is an access in an emergency situation through the reservoir. It will be complicated as the CDOT develops the bridge over Purcell, and if that's where any proposed aquatic center or civic center would go, there will be some additional congestion, and that needs to be addressed beforehand. As far as our current crisis, seemingly the common thread for any crisis that I could come up with, as unexpected as this, is personal protective equipment. And I believe you could beginning to stockpile some of that in small amounts. So we have.
Can you please finish your sentence?
And any of that that has a short shelf life, inter partnerships with big consumers of it, hospitals, those people that we could trade stock, as ours would be expiring and they're ready to use it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Easton. We'd now like to hear from Mr. Rick Dickerson. Your minute begins now.
Thank you, Jaden. I truly interpret this question more as communication and communication to our residents, making sure everybody gets the proper information that they need for everything that's going on. We have so much different ways of communicating that nobody gets it. As far as we have the view, very few people get that. We have our internet, the Metro District internet, very few people know about that. I believe, again, is that we need to get information out there to the public, to all our residents, and we need to learn how to do that in different ways that will help get that information to every one of our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dickerson. We will now hear from Mr. Nicholas DeSalvo.
Well, first off, I'd like to say, as unfortunate as this coronavirus situation is, it's brought out the best in our community, whether it's making homemade face masks or going grocery shopping for your elderly or immunocompromised neighbor. It's shown us what Pueblo West is all about. Emergency services just in general. I've spoken with Division Fire Chief Tim Mitchell about my plans to ensure that the fire department has all the resources and funding that they need to do the work that they do on a day-to-day basis to make sure that the people of Pueblo West are protected. I think a lot of this relies on planning. Even for the most uncertain and unprecedented situations, we have to have a plan in place. As far as getting money and funding, especially for PPE, I would rely on the state government and make sure that Pueblo West is getting an equal slice of the pie when it comes to things as such. So I think cooperation planning has a lot to do with preparedness.
Thank you, Nick DeSalvo. Can we now hear from Mr. Blumberg? Your minute begins when you speak.
Yeah, first, let me say that our first responders are crucial to the safety and well-being to our entire community. So they're a priority, as well as our public works department does an amazing job maintaining the 400 plus miles of road that we have with limited resources that they're given. Unfortunately, our community is growing faster than our infrastructure can support, as we know. In order to meet the demands of the growing population, we as a community need to do a much better job of communicating. And we need to come together to create the funds needed to support us in the times of uncertainty. I'm not just talking taxes, but there's reallocating funds, more cost saving. There are plenty of ideas that we can come up with as a community and as a board, and there just needs to be a good common sense plan that we as a community can back to keep us all safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blumberg. For our last candidate, Mr. Allison, you have the floor.
Yeah, thanks. When I was asked this question, my thought was to ask the professionals and see what they had to say. So I reached out and spoke to a few first responders in our community about this. Beyond the obvious things such as hiring more staff, having more equipment, and another building, they all had one request: fix the roads. Some of our first responders are having to take alternate routes or slow down substantially when they're trying to get to an emergency, simply because of the condition of our roads. This is not okay with me, and it's something I look forward to getting fixed. Our federal government is going to be releasing funds later this year that are designated to smaller communities for fixing their infrastructure. I will make sure that we get our fair share of that money and use it to better our community's infrastructure without having to raise our taxes.
Thank you, Mr. Allison. We will now move on to question 3. The Parks and Recreation Department offers many activities such as sports, events, and other recreational opportunities to the community. As a candidate and resident, what would you like to see added that would benefit our citizens?
Mr. Blumberg, can you speak? You have 1 minute.
Parks and Recreation is equal in importance to economic development. Is the backbone to a successful community. We need forward thinking and creative leaders to accomplish proper growth. This is all about creating community for everyone. With that being said, I feel that I am uniquely qualified because of my time with the Pueblo West Rotary Club in creating and building events that are inclusive to all of us, as well as the ongoing relationships throughout Parks and Rec Department that have been grown over the past 12 years. As far as what I like to see added as a resident of Pueblo West, the Aquatic Center. It should have been a priority a long time ago. I understand there are objections to this project, but there are multiple benefits supporting the addition of a competitive style pool that affects not only our high school athletes, who are role models for other youth within the community, but also senior citizens and growing children. The Aquatic Center would provide a financial resource for the community as well, drawing participants from communities all around Colorado if done right. The proposed Aquatic Center should be placed on the front burner and done properly from the start.
Thank you. Rick Dickerson, would you like to respond to question 3?
Sure, thank you. I believe we need more parks and playgrounds throughout our community where families can get together and kids can play and have a safe place to play. Also believe in the Aquatic Center, which has already passed a vote. So we also have the new sports field for soccer, which I believe both of these will benefit our students so that they have a place to go and practice, as well as we will be able to have a lot of different meets and events that will attract the outside people into our city, which will help our economy. You know, in the same ways that it attracts tourists to our reservoir, we will be able to attract more people into our community and be able to help our economy. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Dickerson. We will now hear from Ms. Hayek. Your minute begins now.
Thank you.
Okay, I agree. I think we need to use the reservoir to our, I mean, we have a big pond in our backyard, we got to do something with that. And the family owned, I'm really into family owned stuff. I love all the ideas about everything, but I think that we need to have family owned stuff. We need to have family owned, just a lot of things. Just we have to work on bringing back families together. I'm a single mom. Some of you guys have been divorced or whatever, brought up by whoever. We need to bring family back. So we got to do that and encourage that. That's what I believe. But I think that if we have family-owned restaurants, I'd like to use our family people on the mesa, all our meat, all our veggies, everything. We need to get back to that. That's what I think. And I believe that with my heart. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hayek. Mr. Mahaney, it's your turn. Your minute begins when you speak.
First of all, I thought that the vote for a swimming pool was a countywide referendum 5A, which included the spirit of at least a jointly funded District 70 pool with Pueblo County and Pueblo West that would be located near the high school, not way off on the east end of the property. And it was not to be an aquatic center. It was supposed to be a competitive, useful pool. Having said that, keep in mind, we already haven't paid for a golf course yet. We've got way more expenses than we have funding. We don't need to have a aquatic center way down on the east end where it's hard to access and expect a lot of people to go down there and pay for it. It won't support itself down there, and it'll cost way too much.
Okay,
That's
thank you, Mr. Mahaney. Next, we will move on to Mr. Myers. Your minute begins now.
I don't think we need the aquatic center at all. I believe that when everyone voted, they were voting to replace the swimming pool. The swimming pool right now costs us $101,543 a year just to operate. That's the little pool at the park right now. To think that someone just is gonna materialize to share in this adventure and build hotels and develop all this property and do all these things in the current economic climate is kind of crazy. I don't see where the money's gonna come from. Unemployment is up. Everyone has lost their jobs. They can't travel. They're not going to have, they're in food lines right now for their families. How are they going to come to our fancy aquatic center when the Wolf is right in Colorado Springs? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. If we can now hear from Kim Swearingen.
Thanks again, Jesselyn. I would like to give kudos to my very good friend who is the Parks Director. I think she does a fantastic job with what she has to work with. She tirelessly works on grants and other forms of funding to provide Pueblo West with some fabulous programs, amenities, and facilities. I would like to help her improve what she has. She has a very hard time every year just getting the pool facility up and running. When I was the utilities director, my staff worked closely with her to help her do that. She struggles with leaks, pumps breaking down, finding qualified lifeguards. The list goes on. Making improvements and maintaining what she has would be a huge step for her department. If we did that, she could spend more time on program enhancements and building on her incredible recreation staff. After we do that, maybe we can talk about more soccer and ball fields, a Northside Park, and more buildings and facilities to do more family activities.
Thank you. I will be repeating question 3. The Parks and Recreation Department offers many activities such as sports, events, and other recreational opportunities to the community. As a candidate and resident, what would you like to see added that would benefit our citizens?
Mr. Allison, your minute begins now.
Yeah, thanks. As a father of 2 young candidates, I want them to grow up as a father of 2 young daughters, I want them to grow up in a fun, safe, amazing community with plenty of activities. I can't wait to help grow the Parks and Rec department. I will add more parks, places to play outdoors, and not just on the south side of the highway. I feel the north side of Pueblo West has been greatly overlooked when it comes to parks and recreation. We need more family fun events like movies in the park and Summerfest. Whether I'm elected to the board or not, I will be putting on fun family activities and other events for our community. The Aquatic Center will also be a great place for families to attend, elderly to exercise, and give our teens a fun, safe place to be. Last but not least, Pueblo West has no shortage of trails and places to hike. I think that would be a great idea if we took advantage of some of our natural terrain and constructed our own miniature Manitou incline. This would be a place for people to get outdoors, to enjoy Pueblo West's beautiful scenery, and to get some exercise as well.
Thank you, Mr. Allison. Nicholas DeSalvo, can you answer question 3? Your minute begins when you speak.
Well, first off, I'd like to say that the Parks Department does a tremendous job stretching the limited amount of funding that they do receive. With that being said, we just don't have the money for them to fund new projects. So I would rely on private ownership to provide more fun community things for people of all ages to enjoy, whatever that may be. I think I know better than any other candidate how difficult it is to be a young person living in Pueblo West, because quite frankly, there isn't much to do. Of course, we have things on the books like the Aquatic Center that's coming up soon. We have a bowling alley that's coming up, but people my age go to Sonic for fun. And quite honestly, that's sad. We have to make sure that we can offer more to the young people to get them to stay in Pueblo West, to give them a reason to stay in Pueblo West and want to come back here after college or trade school and build a family. That's what will make Pueblo West thrive. Thank you.
Can candidate Joe Easton answer question 3, please?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with some of the other candidates. That Carol does a great job on a limited budget. And I'm struck by some of the comments I'm hearing, far too much for my comfort of what we can't do. It's not 1976, it's not 1996, it's 2020. The community, what the research shows, one of the number one factors for growing a community is creating a safe, thriving environment that families would like to come live in and work in and invest in. And they simply will not do that as a sleepy bedroom community with little amenities. I say Pueblo West first. We should put our big boy pants on and invest in the community, create a first-rate community with some amenities, and people will come. If you grow the tax base, we need more services. We need a lot more of a lot of things. It's not always taxes that's the answer. Private investment, grant writing. Too much is being spent on.
Can you please finish your sentence?
Sure. The pie, we don't want to divide the pie differently. We want to make the pie bigger.
Thank you, Mr. Easton. Jim Maggard, your minute begins when you speak.
Mr. Maggard, you're on mute.
Pardon?
Okay, we can hear you now.
Okay. With this idea of the rec department, well, I think a lot of people. Make sure they can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, think about recreation around here. Most of it is sports. What we need to do is understand what recreation is all about. And I think we should develop some cultural entertainment in their community. We've got local people that do theatricals. We have different types of bands, music. Those are all part of recreation. As far as developing the sports field, Several years ago, we were trying to develop the old airport into ball fields and other activities. Now the sports is going in there, so we need to really think about combining all of that into one recreational area. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Maggard. Can we hear from Mr. Montoya next?
Yes, thank you. I was really excited to see that the aquatic center funding was approved. Since the YMCA pool is closed down, individuals who depended on it for recreational and therapeutic use really haven't had any place to go. And the pool that we do have out here is in pretty bad shape, and I'd rather put the funds into a new aquatic center than I would trying to get that working. Additional recreational space for youth and seniors, I think, is a good thing for our community. We have an older population, and that's including me, and I'd like to see some other kinds of activities. We've got a good trail system, and I think we could expand on that. And it was mentioned earlier, District 70 was talking about getting into it, but we'd have to pass a bond in order for them to have the money to do that. But currently, District 70 and the Metro District have worked together quite a bit in terms of space, recreational space for our youth. What I'd like to see is some more soccer, baseball, and softball fields built so that these sports will bring other people into the community. I think that'll generate some funds. There's always room for more tournaments and that sort of thing, and restaurants will benefit from it as well.
Thank you, Mr. Montoya. Now we will be hearing from the last candidate for this question, which is Ms. Baker Orr.
So I agree with a lot of the candidates here, which is we do need things for every generation to do, not just our young kids and our young kids, our grandkids, things like that. And when people are looking at a community and relocating here, whether they're retiring, they're coming here to work at the hospitals or the college, one of the things that they're really looking at is entertainment. What are their kids going to be able to do when they're here, as well as the school district and how well the schools are performing. But one of the things that I get asked the most is what is there to do in Pueblo and Pueblo West? So when they're locating here, you know, we're showing them the cattail pond and the water park for the kids, the splash park, those types of things. And those are the things that draw people here in the community. And that's what's going to drive basically our tax base up, hopefully by bringing in some big box office stores that will help that. And then the more big box office we have, the more people want to live here.
Stop. Can you please finish your sentence?
I just did.
All right, thank you, Candid. So our next question is, as a developing community, how can we entice businesses to bring jobs with higher earning potential to address poverty? For example, 8.26% of people in our community are living in poverty.
And our first candidate to answer is Mr. Josh Allison.
So whether we like it or not, Pueblo West is growing. I'll make sure that as we grow, that it's most importantly that we grow responsibly. Pueblo West is currently missing out on so many different types of business. I'm sure we can all think of at least one business that we wish Pueblo West currently had that it doesn't. I'm going to make Pueblo West a more desirable location for businesses like the ones you just thought of in your head to open here, help build our community, and grow our economy. More business in Pueblo West equals more jobs, more fun things for families to do, reasons for people to either move here or stay here, and not to mention we'll bring in more money to the Metro District to help fix our ever-growing problems such as streets and roads. I hope to be elected to the Pueblo West Metro Board of Directors because I love Pueblo West. I believe I will be an asset to our community and a mouthpiece for our residents to the Metro Board. Pueblo West is my home, and I will do everything in my power to make it the best place to live for my family and yours. Thanks again for watching, and please vote Josh Allison for the Pueblo West Metro Board of Directors.
Thank you. May I also mention that and remind you that this question is an answer and your closing statement. Nicholas DeSalvo, can you please answer this last question?
Well, first off, I'd like to say that 8.26% number is jarring. Living in Pueblo West, we'd like to think that we aren't subject to the same problems that some in the city of Pueblo face, but no community is immune to poverty. And that's the bottom line. And these just aren't certain individuals. These are families with kids that go to school with holes in their shoes. And so we need to really talk about what we could offer here in our own community as far as jobs. People have made it very clear to me that they don't want Pueblo West to get too big because they moved out here because it was a rural type community. But of course we can compromise. We're not saying widespread economic growth to where we turn to look like a city, but we have to offer something. As far as enticing businesses, we cannot offer tax write-offs because that is not how our governmental system is based. We just have to tell them what Pueblo West is all about. Some areas in Pueblo West have a lot of land, and that's very attractive for business owners to come here and build, but not only to come here and build, but they have the opportunity to come here and grow. And that's very important. This is the last time I'll be able to speak. And of course, I didn't get in everything that I would have liked. So you could visit Nicholas DeSalvo for Pueblo West on Facebook to find more about me, what my platform is, and even contact me directly. But we talked a lot about the future tonight. And like it or not, I'm the future. And I will bridge the generational gap between my generation and those in current leadership. We have not had anyone super young any control our local government. And I will be an open figurehead. I have no special interests or personal agenda. I'm here to serve the people of Pueblo West, and that's exactly what I'll do. Vote Nicholas DeSalvo. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeSalvo. The next candidate speaking will be Joe Easton. Your 2 minutes begin as soon as you start speaking.
Thank you. We've talked a lot about economic growth and increasing taxes or tax base or funding for the problems we have. One thing that's missed, that it is frequently less expensive, more productive in health outcomes and in preventing poverty to invest in the current businesses that are out here and grow them, foster what's already here. You do not at the expense of attracting new businesses or other businesses. And again, recreation and quality of life is what attracts people to live and work in a community, to build homes, and to invest in that community. I am not for wild growth. I am for measured, productive increases in services. Make Pueblo West a first-class city that people want to live and work in. Nick is right, and some of the younger candidates. I ran for this office not because I think I'm smarter than other people or I've got way more to offer. I'm willing to roll up my sleeves and work, and I'm committed, win this election, not win this election, to being invested in the community. And I will help, if I'm not elected, those who are, to improve this community. I believe profoundly you should leave a place better than you found it. And it's not about what station of life I'm in or anybody else is in. It's about improving the community for those that are here now and those that will come after us. If what I've said is appealing to you, vote Joe Easton for the Metro Board. And if you don't and I don't win, you'll still see me around town trying to work for the betterment of the community and the people that live here. Appreciate the time and well done, ladies and gentlemen.
Can you please finish your sentence?
I'm all good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Easton. Jim Maggard, your 2 minutes begins when you start speaking.
Is this economic development. I took 3 years to get lobbyists finally to present the rules to the legislature to remove the restrictions on investment, which they had. It would take $2.5 in that area $1 billion of commercial industry before you spend money on economic development. We did get that done about 8 years ago. Nothing has been done really. We now should implement this program and really get on it and bring in actually not retail, but we need the industrial end type of businesses. Factories, small, clean industries, usually pay a fairly good wage. Our demographics will not support a lot of retail. Just think what has happened in Pueblo, how many large retails have left the city of Pueblo. So this is something that is very important. It's something will bring in a lot more funds than building of the homes. Hopefully we can accomplish this next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maggard. Could we now please hear from Mr. Montoya?
Yes, thank you. Given the recent meeting with SEH Design Build Inc. and the estimated cost of $7 to $9 million for a civic center, I think we got to start rethinking what we're willing to pay and in order to get this community looking to businesses coming in here. They were talking about the possibility of a convention center as well, and that's well and good, but I don't know that we could generate enough interest that would happen because we're competing with the city of Pueblo. But anything that we can do to improve services and amenities is a plus. It makes sense to create housing and commercial space. And if a convention center or a civic center will do that, then I think that's something that we can consider. There are a lot of issues that we have to consider before we move that way, though. Pueblo West has managed to stay the size that it is and grow slowly. And I'm not sure that it would support a lot of things that we've talked about tonight. And my interest is in just getting feedback from the community, finding out what they will accept, what they're willing to deal with in terms of growth, increased traffic, safety issues, and those kinds of things, and determine if they're willing to pay for those kinds of things. You don't just decide that you want to do some additional businesses or buildings and that sort of thing without having to spend some money or to give up something as a community. You know, I've done my best to represent my constituents over the years. My experience in managing budgets, personnel, grants, organizational management, I think has prepared me quite well to manage finances responsibly. And, you know, I've always honored what the voters have wanted. When I was with the school district, it was always about what was good for students. What did they need? What did they want? How could we serve them? I heard earlier,
can you please finish your sentence?
About being a servant to the community. And I think I've always been one of those individuals that have cared about the community. So, you know, I'd be very proud to serve on the board and ask for your support.
Thank you, Mr. Montoya. We will now hear from Ms. Baker-Orr.
So thank you for everybody who showed up tonight and for our young students who are putting this on and taking the bull by the horns. I'm so proud of all of you. You're doing an amazing job. So either way, I'm kind of with Joe, the same thing. I want to help the community. I'm gonna just try and listen to what you guys have to say, try and make decisions based on logistics, not just thank you for everybody who showed up tonight and for our young students who are putting this on and taking the bull by the horns. I'm so proud of all of you. You're doing
Sorry
an
about
amazing
that.
job.
Arena, can you mute your microphone, please? Thank you. Keep going.
So sorry, I had a bunch of feedback, but anyways, I think you have a lot of good opportunities here. You have a lot of amazing people that are running for this board, and I think everybody has something unique to bring to our community. So that's very exciting to see that 13 people actually showed up to run for the board, which is exciting because a lot of people don't have the drive to do this or I guess the ability to run and talk in front of people. So I think you guys are doing amazing, every one of you. If for some reason I don't get elected, I would love the opportunity to help out the Pueblo West Metro as I have done in the past. And hopefully I can be positive growth and help any way that I can. And good luck to everybody. And if you like what you see, then vote for me.
Thank you, Ms. Baker-Orr. I will now reread the question for the second half of the answers. To reread the question, as a developing community, how can we entice businesses to bring jobs with higher earning potential to address poverty? For example, 8.2% of people in our community are living in poverty.
Mr. Blumberg, you have 2 minutes at your leisure.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that this question is all about our kids going to school and having a reason for them to return. I've been a citizen here in Pueblo West for the past 12 years. We definitely need to do a much better job, I believe, in marketing our community, as well as we need to be better at marketing bigger businesses. Bigger businesses leads to higher education, which leads to higher wages, as well as more job opportunities. We need to have an aggressive, creative, and forward-thinking mindset that is needed to take Pueblo West to the next level. There also needs to be a simple process that is a win-win for new corporations and the Metro to do business in Pueblo West. Throughout the night, I've touched on a few of my 3 top priorities: economic development, Parks and Rec, and communication. Economic development, we need to have an aggressive, creative, and forward-thinking mindset again that is needed to take us to the next level. I'm going to be aggressive, yet responsible in recruiting larger businesses as well as small businesses to our amazing community. Parks and Recreation is equal in importance to economic development. It is the backbone to a successful community. We need forward-thinking and creative leaders, again, to accomplish the proper growth with that. Obviously, as I said before, the Aquatic Center, I believe, is a priority. And as Nick pointed out earlier, our youth are our future. So let's invest. Communication and transparency should start from the directors down. Leaders should be out within the community answering questions, time that our citizens feel like they are part of a team. My name is Andy Blumberg. I want to thank everyone again for the opportunity, and I look forward to serving you. I'll do a great job for you. Please vote Andy.
Thank you. Can we please hear from Rick Dickerson?
Yes, thank you. And I thank all of you who have put this together. Thank the community for joining all of us. I just wanted to say, I am in an industry where a lot of investors are calling me and asking me for my opinion about Pueblo West. Right now, I'm working on 3 big projects that is bringing in commercial projects, industry projects. This will bring in more jobs for our community. It will boost our economic development here. And so with that, it will help everything possible. I know a lot about the economic development, so I can help out in a lot of different ways. And even if I'm not elected, I am still going to be a part of this and keep doing this. Also, we do have land. The Metro has land that we can use to put incentives out there for big businesses. Also, I have been this community, the way it's growing, I feel that I would do the best to benefit the growth of our community and in a positive way. And just want to say that I have a passion for the community and I want to see the best for it. Be rad, vote for Rick, and thank you all.
Thank you for your response, Mr. Dickerson. Now we will hear the closing remarks and final question from Ms. Hayek. Your minute begins when you start speaking.
Well, concerning the question, I really feel that we really have to get some trade schools and things in here, because it breaks my heart to hear about poverty and you know, Nick saying, you know, he knows kids at high school that are going to school with holes in their shoes and stuff. That stuff upsets me a lot. So where I work at Lowe's, I tell these kids, they're all on their phones. we've got to try, you guys, to get these kids off phones and know something, read a tape measure, know how to hang a picture. You know, we've got to get natural art to encourage that kind of stuff, that kind of a school. You know, we have to start where we're at, and we have to help everybody that's been out here forever, you know, roads, education, you know, we have to start there. And then, and, you know, I know some of them, we already got the aquatic center. This, we have to maybe hold on for a second. Let's get everything in order here and then grow it. But we have to start with our own people. I think that, you know, our local people, we've got to help those businesses, like he said, help those businesses and grow those. You know, that's more family and togetherness oriented, rather than everybody's coming in from here, makes their paycheck and they're gone. You know, they dime a dozen jobs and everything. So there's a lot of things that I just have a different view on, but agree with all of these things, you know. So no matter what happens, that I will, anybody could call me and I will help you figure out anything that you could possibly want. I promise I would. So thank you guys very much for everything, and vote Sherry.
Thank you, Ms. Hayek. Now we will be hearing from Joe Mahaney. Your 2 minutes begins when you start speaking.
First of all, the 8% poverty rate, I think, is very misleading. There are a lot of retired people, my wife and myself included, that are financially in the retired or the poverty level. We were good money managers. We reduced our debts. We don't have any debts, and we live quite well in Pueblo West. Pueblo West has a 0.91 cost of living index. A lot of people are moving here. Last year, the last 2 years, 350 new home starts were in this community. 300 of those were in the rural areas where they were on septic systems. The market for growth in Pueblo West is people that want to get out of the urban sprawl. They want to get out of the hectic lifestyle. They want to have a place where they might have a horse or a dog or cat or whatever they want to have. But mainly they want to be spread out away from other people. The budget, I really get upset. I go to all the board meetings, and if you followed the budget year after year, when Darren Tangeman was our district manager, he changed the budget system from departmental budgeting to priority budgeting. And people wondered, well, what is priority budgeting? Well, what it amounts to is they throw all the money, the income, into one pot, and then the board, due to their special interests, decide what is a priority. Now, all of a sudden, instead of fixing the roads, with people have wanted to do for the last 20 years, the new priority now is a convention center and an aquatic center and a new palace of bureaucracy down on Spalding, near some of the other directors' properties. We're being forced into a excessive spending spree to the betterment of a few and the detriment of most people. People should look into this budgeting and go to these hearings, go to these board meetings, and find out how these people control you. Next time you get your utility bill, look down at the bottom of it. There's a thing called RTS. I would bet 95% of the people that pay that bill have no idea what that RTS is. It's readiness to serve. The board can raise that anytime they want. In the last 10 years, they've raised it from under $5 to now near $20. Do you realize how much money that generates? That deficit is paid for through increased water fees. That's not it's really a tax, because you pay that every time, whether you use any water or not. The board has used that as their funding source. The current regime, as I call them, they think of that budget as a source of money, and they shuffle money around and move it here and move it there. And, oh, we entered that as this line. The budget's 180 pages long. So Anyway, if anybody's curious as to what I look like, drive down Gulfview some afternoon. It's a short street just parallel to McCulloch.
Hey,
And
Mr. Mahaney,
you'll see me, I'm the guy out there fixing the roads with my own shovel and my own broom.
You need to wrap up. Thank you. Sorry, the screen froze.
I'm done.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mahaney. If we could now hear from Herbert D. Myers.
Thank you, Joe. That was beautiful. And along those lines, I'm kind of curious if Pueblo West is in need of all this high taxes and industries and businesses and big box stores. Why are we all living here right now? Why did we come here in the first place? We have a fantastic fire department. We have a fantastic sheriff's office. I had the privilege of knowing and working with the sheriff when we were both in Alamosa a long time ago. We both had hair. I've worked for government my entire life. I'm a retired law enforcement officer. I'm a criminal investigator. I've worked for free. The federal government several times in the past has decided that they're going to close and they decide not to pay anyone. I've worked prison riots for free. We were not getting paid because there was no money. So I'm used to working like without a budget. I'm used to doing more with nothing. I've been a government employee my whole life. This is a bedroom community. There's nothing wrong with it being a bedroom community. That's what Mr. McCulloch built it and designed it for. It's a bedroom community for Colorado Springs and Pueblo. It's a recreation community with the reservoir, not a pool, not any other infrastructure that everyone needs or believes they need. My family and I function on needs, wants, and desires. So needs are the fire department, the water department. We have a lot of money tied up in those staffs, and I would never want to hurt that. At some point in time, those folks would like to have a raise. Our street maintenance crew is the smallest department in the metro. How can that be when if you look 30 seconds at all of the social media, all anyone ever talks about is how crappy the roads are? Well, let's do something about it. We need to buy the equipment. We need to have the personnel to fix the roads and then maintain them once they're fixed. It's not rocket science.
You have 15 seconds.
Thank you. I appreciate you all, most especially the kids. You worked really hard on this and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. We will now be hearing from the last candidate of tonight, Ms. Swearingen.
I was the development engineering manager for the city of Brighton. This means I saw everything that went in and out of the city offices when it came to community and economic development. That was a lot of development because at the time, Brighton was the second fastest growing community in Colorado. Pueblo West is the fastest growing community in Southern Colorado. More and more people are learning what a great place this is. Here's the thing that most people don't know. A company will come here because they want to come here and know that there is a market for their product or service. That is the great thing about a free market economy. We have to make this community a destination, not just a stop on the way to Lake Pueblo. Companies come to communities because they are beautiful, welcoming, and encourage new ideas. They also come to communities because they are welcomed by the governing entity, and this comes through streamlined development processes and ease of getting through the development system. Now, Pueblo County controls our development process, but that doesn't mean we should be a barrier to growth. We need to be pro-business if we want to provide companies the resources needed for them to be successful. This comes with the responsibility of smart growth, and we have to balance our needs with our resources. We cannot just willy-nilly allow Wild West type of growth, which has been the scenario of the past. We must be aware of our shortcomings, such as the need for water shares and repairing crumbling infrastructure. These are all important considerations while still enticing the goods and services we so desperately need here in Pueblo West. In closing, I would like to again thank Ms. Erickson and her students for putting on this forum, and I'll keep the rest of this closing to Twitter's 280 character limit so you can share it on social. Winning for the West, Pueblo West, and vote Kim Swearingen on May 5th.
Thank you, Mrs. Swearingen, and thank you to every single one of the candidates. On behalf of the student moderators from Pueblo West High School, our government teacher, Mrs. Erickson, and the staff at the Pueblo West Metropolitan District, we are grateful. to have had the opportunity to host a forum in these current times of uncertainty and change. To the individuals and families watching at home, listening, we hope you are able to develop a greater insight and additional perspectives about your next candidates who will be the voices for our special district. Although we were saddened to not host a traditional in-person forum, we wanted to continue to provide the people with additional means to navigate the democratic process and emphasize the impact of a grassroots movement. Change on the national and state level does not come easy when discussing political matters. However, political participation, activism, and support on the local level is the stepping stone to create a community that embodies open discourse, opportunities, and hope for the future. We, as the students, are able to transform the education taught in the classroom as our guide to find the depths of our interests through events such as this forum. Hosting and moderating this forum is just one way for young adults to stay actively involved, express their newfound passions, and grow as a person, and more importantly, a citizen. The times of crisis surrounding our daily lives may cause us to feel a disconnect between our families, our closest friends, and the greater community. But Pueblo West can use the pressing issues of our time to bring us all back together by being open-minded, collaborating, and listening. Now, it is your time as an educated voter to go out and vote, because it is arguably better to vote with the necessary understanding of your candidates than to simply check a box that you know nothing about. By Tuesday, May 5th, fulfill your duty and vote. We are a community that can do this together. Stay safe and healthy. This officially concludes the 2020 Pueblo West Metropolitan District Candidate Forum. Have a wonderful evening. Don't forget to vote. Good night.
Bye. Thank you, guys. So.